Welcome to Azibo Stories. I'm Kaylin, here to showcase how landlords and renters are thriving with Azibo's all-in-one platform. From streamlined rent collection to comprehensive banking services, these real-life experiences highlight the impact Azibo has on simplifying property management and renting. Let's discover together how Azibo can be your partner in success.
So I'm Kaylin. I'm the social media and content coordinator at Azibo, and then I am here with Julia. Julia, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, my name is Julia Moluf, and I am the director of Best Buddies Living.
Awesome. And then can you share a little bit about your role at Best Buddies and the mission of Best Buddies Living?
Absolutely. So Best Buddies is an international nonprofit that's dedicated to supporting people with intellectual and developmental disabilities through friendships, jobs, leadership, and inclusive living. So I help oversee our inclusive living pillar, which sets out to create inclusive living opportunities for people with and without disabilities to live together, and for people with disabilities to work on independent living skills.
Awesome. And then why is housing so important for adults with disabilities?
A lot of families and adults with disabilities refer to what happens after they graduate from high school as the cliff. People with disabilities have a lot of supports through the special education system and through the public school system. And then once they graduate, there's kind of a big cliff of what do they do next? A lot of them, four-year universities aren't the right fit. So figuring out where they're going to live, what they're going to do for work, all of those types of things can be really overwhelming. And there's definitely a huge need for housing for adults with disabilities. There's a study from A Place in This World, which is a really great report about housing for people with disabilities that says 62% of adults with disabilities dream of living on their own. In addition to that, because there's been medical advancements, people with disabilities are living longer, and so they're more likely to outlive their caregivers. So a lot of families are left scrambling, trying to find the right kind of housing opportunity for their loved one.
Yeah, for sure. And then, so what makes Best Buddies Living different from other housing programs for people with disabilities?
We need all types of housing programs.
Right.
We need group homes. We need independent living programs. We need all of those options because everybody's support needs are going to be different. But I would say what really sets Best Buddies Living apart is that we are inclusive. So there are people with and without disabilities living together. The people without disabilities are not caregivers, they're not paid support staff. They are really just roommates who want to live in a diverse community and understand our mission and what we're striving to see, which is a more inclusive world. So it's pretty hard to find another program that is doing the inclusive model that way.
Awesome. And then how long have you guys been using Azibo and utilizing our services? And then how did you discover our platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've probably been using Azibo for about a year and a half. And the reason we found it is actually our vice president of finance discovered it, I think, just in a search of looking for something like Azibo to help manage our locations. We started to grow and have more locations. And so we needed a platform that was going to support that growth.
Awesome. And then in what ways do you use Azibo at Best Buddies?
Yeah, so right now, Best Buddies Living has 5 inclusive living programs. So we have 2 in Washington, D.C., 1 in Miami, 1 in L.A., and 1 in Atlanta. And we're on track to open 3 more in 2024, so lots of growth. And Azibo has given us a really great way to not only streamline rent collection, but also at a glance be able to tell where our vacancies are and really just create a way for us to collect rent that's safe and secure and keeps everything organized.
Awesome. And so do you guys have one person that does it for every single branch in every single area?
Yeah. And right now that's
awesome.
me.
Okay, awesome.
I'm kind of the Azibo person, so making sure that everything's up to date and making sure everybody has access.
Awesome. And then how has Azibo helped you and the residents of Best Buddies Living achieve financial independence?
Yeah, absolutely. So something we really work on at Best Buddies Living is helping residents understand what it's like to pay bills for the first time and what it's like to pay rent. And so Azibo has given us that platform to really make it something that is formalized. Prior to Azibo, we were actually collecting rent either through Venmo payments or through checks in the mail. So we
Yeah.
were really doing it the hardest way possible. And it also just wasn't very realistic. You know, if someone goes out
Right.
after Best Buddies Living and rents from an apartment building, they're going to use an online platform like Azibo to pay rent.
Right.
They're not going to be Venmoing someone or, you know, paying their parents. So this really legitimized the program for us.
Awesome. And that's cool to hear that you can still have that kind of like contact with them as well, being so far away. I think that's awesome.
Absolutely. That's a great point too.
Yeah.
You know, even though we have locations across the country, I'm based in DC, but it's really easy for me to manage the finances and just at a glance be able to kind of see how a program's doing by looking in our Azibo accounts.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. And then how has Azibo impacted your approach to housing and supporting adults with disabilities?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just really given us the opportunity to scale. Before, like I said, we were using Venmo payments, we were sending checks in the mail. Neither of those were super reliable ways for us to collect rent. And so it seemed like it wasn't going to be feasible to open new locations. But now with Azibo, I feel like it's a lot more feasible because everything's in one place. It's a secure platform. It's something we've been using for a while. So we feel really confident when sometimes families are like, oh, like what website is this? You know, and we feel confident backing it up and being like, you know, this is what we've used for years and it works really well for us.
Have you noticed like more success with rent payments and like on-time payments with the online platform usage?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I think, I mean, even like mailing checks was just such a burden,
Hassle,
and we would have to get them with signature receipts, so someone would sign for them at our headquarters office, and all of those types of things. And so it's really eliminated that. I also really love that I'm able to send rent reminders through Azibo. Again, it just kind of maintains that professionalism instead of me sending a text to somebody or something like that. You know, it really kind of just sets us up for success in that way.
Explore Azibo for a streamlined approach to property management. Our comprehensive platform simplifies every aspect of managing your rental units. From diverse rent collection methods to finding and securing high-quality tenants through smart applications and thorough screening, Azibo has you covered. Benefit from state-specific digital lease agreements, tailored accounting, tax tools for property owners, and an efficient maintenance request system. Plus, enjoy substantial savings with affordable property insurance tailored to your needs. Embrace the smarter, cost-effective way to manage your rental properties with Azibo. Join our community of savvy property owners and start for free at azibo.com. That's AZIBO.com.
And then are there any particular outcomes or successes for Best Buddy Living that you attribute to using Azibo?
Yeah, I would say I think the biggest one that comes to mind is definitely being able to expand, which has been really helpful. And, you know, Best Buddies is on corporate leases for these apartment buildings, and then we're leasing them back out to residents. So it makes sure that Best Buddies is able to pay their bills every month, which is obviously really important to any kind of nonprofit. And like I said, I think it's just given residents also an opportunity to really learn that independent living skill of paying bills.
Yeah, that's awesome. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your satisfaction with Azibo? And then what do you appreciate most about our platform?
That's a great question. I guess I would say a 9. I think it really serves our needs. I think there's, from what I can tell, there's more coming. You know, I'll see notes that say in the future, we're trying to have this, or this is, you know, up and coming. So I think there's always room for improvement or extra features that can be added. But I feel like for us, it's really served a great purpose. What was your second question? Sorry.
No, that's okay. What do you think? What do you appreciate most about our platform?
Yeah. I would say probably the customer service.
Awesome.
Sometimes I'll be messing around with a certain account or trying to cancel an invoice or whatever it is. And if for some reason something's not working for me, I don't even bother with like spending a long time trying to solve it, because I just know if I shoot an email to somebody, they'll get back to me right away. And so that's really been a huge benefit for us.
Yeah, that's always awesome to hear. And we get into customer service in here. So that's awesome. We'll get a little bit more into that. And then speaking on, you know, always room for improvement, specifically with inclusive living programs, just because this is such an awesome thing to talk about with you and hear back from, you know, programs like this that we can help. What do you think are some new improvements or features that you would like to see Azibo have to better serve programs like yours?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one thing that really comes to mind for me is being able to split rent payments between two parties. A
Okay.
lot of our residents with disabilities are getting support from family to pay for their rent, but they're maybe also contributing a portion.
Right.
So
Okay.
right now, we've kind of had a good workaround, which is that we can create like another unit and basically
Mhm.
split the unit up that way. So the residents can pay their portion of the rent, and then the parents can go in and pay their portion. But I think in the future, being able to split that from one individual unit would be really useful. And
Mhm.
it kind of goes along the same lines with government funding and everything. A lot of times, people with disabilities have multiple accounts that their money is held in
Mhm.
for very like specific purposes or specific reasons. And so being able to have that flexibility when they sign up for Azibo is going to be really great in the future, I'm sure.
Okay. So I know that you said that y'all were looking for a service like ours, and that's how you came across us. Did Best Buddies use any other competitor or any other financial service? I know y'all used Venmo before.
Mhm.
Can you talk about kind of your experience with Venmo?
Yeah, for sure. So Venmo was really the only quote unquote service we used before this.
Mm-hmm.
And it served its purpose when we were really small, and it was fine because
Mm-hmm.
we only had a certain amount of residents and we were able to
Right.
manage it. I would say one of the difficulties with Venmo is that it's primarily an app based
Mm-hmm.
platform. And so the web version isn't super useful for us. And there was also a lot of complications with connecting a Venmo account to like a corporate bank account as
Yeah.
opposed to somebody's personal bank account. So
Mm-hmm.
even now, once in a while, someone will pay the Best Buddies Venmo for something else, and we have to shoot an email to our VP of Finance, who has to like literally go on her phone and transfer the money on her
Right.
Venmo app. So that's definitely not the most ideal situation, and it wouldn't have been
Mm-hmm.
possible with how many rent payments we now collect. It just wouldn't have been feasible. So it served its purpose for when it was a really small number of people, but it became clear to us pretty quickly that we were going to need a more reliable platform where it was tracking every month. We knew exactly what everything was for. Venmo was just a little too wishy-washy for us in this case.
Right, exactly. And then what other services on Azibo do you use? Do y'all use any of the bookkeeping, any of the other services that we offer?
So right
The
now we're really just using the rent collection
Okay.
because we have like internal leases that we create, and then Best Buddies is a pretty big nonprofit, so we have like a whole finance department who runs all of our bookkeeping. But I think
Awesome.
what's been
Okay.
kind of great is that even though I'm not in those financial roles, I've been able to kind of notice when new features are coming up on Azibo, and I'm always
Mhm.
just keeping finance in the loop. Like, hey, I saw Azibo has this new feature. If that would make your life easier to have this kind of bookkeeping information, let me
Right.
know. So I think there's definitely a possibility that we will utilize more of those features moving forward.
Awesome, for sure. And then at this point right now, would you recommend Azibo to other organizations managing like similar housing programs? And then why
Yeah,
or why not?
absolutely. I definitely would. I mean, I think for a nonprofit to have a free service like this is really a game changer. And I also think it just has a very user-friendly platform. In addition to, things like group homes and Best Buddies Living, there is a lot of families who will purchase a home for their son or daughter with a disability for them to live in, and then they'll maybe sublease out the other bedrooms. And so
Hmm.
for someone who doesn't have any experience in the real estate market, but is looking for a solution for their child to live independently, I
Right.
think Gazebo would be a really effective way for them to collect rent and to, kind of formalize what is a rather informal idea, which is just trying to find a place for their son or daughter to live in and to find some roommates for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And do y'all outsource like that? Do y'all get a lot of the community coming to you and asking you these questions and kind of asking about these housing situations and stuff like that? Because obviously y'all are, doing these for these people and, with the community a lot. Do y'all get a lot of people coming to you and asking you for these, opinions and things like that?
Absolutely. One of my favorite parts about working in this inclusive housing space and really just housing for people with disabilities in general is that there's really no sense of competition amongst groups that are doing housing for people with disabilities. And I say this all the time, but we could all open 100 housing programs and we would still need hundreds of more housing programs. And we're also all serving a very different niche population. Some programs have medical care, some programs do therapeutic services. We're all serving a niche of the population. And so what I really love is that there's never any gatekeeping of what works for us, what doesn't work for us. We want people to learn from us, even if they're going to go and do something that's slightly different, that's still benefiting people with disabilities. And so we definitely speak to people all the time about getting their own housing project started, starting their own housing nonprofit. And I would definitely recommend Azibo to them as a way to collect rent.
Absolutely. Awesome. And we're going to get into the customer service again. Can you share any experiences that you've had with the Azibo customer support team in the context of your program?
Yeah, for sure. I think sometimes, like I said, I mentioned one of their solutions for me in terms of having multiple people pay rent for one unit was to divide the units and have two separate units or two separate accounts on Azibo for one unit, which was a really helpful solution to us. But sometimes it's as simple as, hey, I can't find this button, or I can't figure out how to cancel this invoice. And I always get, an automatic email reply that's like, okay, we're on it. Like someone will be assigned to your question. And I just feel like I've always gotten the solution figured out, which has been really helpful to me. And in the year and a half I've been managing it, there's probably been quite a few times that I've reached out to them about one thing or another, and I've always walked away with the answer that I needed.
Awesome. And then is there anything unique that you may have needed just specifically with the unique needs of your program that you would rate the support that you received with the unique needs of, having a disability program?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't know that I've had anything in particular that's come up that relates to disability, but I think what I've learned, even just through the interaction of reaching out about sharing this story, is that there was a lot of excitement about the program that we're doing. And I feel really confident that this would be something that I could work with Azibo on in the future if I had a certain accommodation request or something like that. And I think that's part of it too. For instance, when we have residents who are learning to pay rent, we're not interested in charging them late fees because this is a learning process. So the fact that I'm able to kind of toggle certain features on and off is really helpful, because it creates an environment where we're able to really support them in this growth and, scaffold this support for them. And that includes things like not necessarily charging them late fees, but explaining, had you been at a different apartment building, that probably would have been automatic. And having those learning moments is really important to us. And I appreciate the flexibility of being able to really individualize each person's payment plans.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And then just some concluding thoughts and then just general feedback. How has Azibo helped address the importance of housing for adults with disabilities through your program?
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, I think housing for adults with disabilities is really such a huge need. And I think a lot of families feel really intimidated about what to take as a first step and where they can go to find the right supports for their son or daughter. And Best Buddies Living isn't always going to be the right fit for everybody. We serve a very particular part of the population, but my hope is that with the support of platforms like Azibo, it really does give us that scalability. So right now we only have 5 locations and we're only serving, X number of people. But with a platform like Azibo, it really does give us, the platform to expand, exponentially. And that's really exciting. And I don't think we were able to really envision that from a logistics perspective before using Azibo. And so, the more housing projects we can open, the better. And I think too, the more success that Best Buddies Living has, the more we can share our knowledge with other groups who are trying to do something similar. And that's going to, Azibo is going to be a part of our formula for that.
Absolutely. And then do you have any additional feedback or suggestions for us to further support inclusive living programs?
No, I don't think so. I honestly think everyone just being willing to learn about it. I think we didn't reach out to Azibo and give all this context before we started. We just kind of started using the platform to see if it would work for us. And so I think you all just being aware that your platform is probably serving this population you didn't even realize you were serving is really
absolutely.
great. And being able to, take some time to chat with you about it, all of this is just so beneficial for us. And we're excited to work with companies who are excited about what we're doing. So it's just been a really mutually beneficial experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if you would like, we would want you to just say the website and any socials if you want to plug right now, so we can get that in there as well.
Absolutely. You can learn more about Best Buddies Living at www.bestbuddies.org/living. And Best Buddies in general can be followed on all platforms, just at Best Buddies, all one word and all lowercase.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Julia.
Thank you, Kaylin. I appreciate it.
Recording. Awesome.
Thank you for joining us on Azibo Stories. We hope these insights from your fellow property owners and renters have inspired you to explore how Azibo can streamline and enhance your property management and renting experience. Remember, with Azibo, you're not just managing properties, you're building success. Visit us at azibo.com to learn more. Until next time, keep thriving with Azibo.